He is our legal correspondent. He's a good Tennessee man. He is my life consultant and my gambling and golfing buddy. He's Jay St. Clair, ladies and gentlemen. Jay, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
You know, if I was any better, man, I'd be one of your dogs.
It's Munson. It's Larry Munson. Ms. Beasley's got a muscle strain in one of her legs.
Well, that's shocking.
I know. Much as she won't stop jumping off things that are like 6 feet high in the air, and she's hurt one of her legs.
Oh.
I know. Well, she'll be all right. Give her a baby aspirin. She'll be just fine. Jay, I noticed that, and the answer may be nothing, Matt. It's no biggie. There's an election going on, and we're focused on that. But I noticed that the United States Supreme Court is back in session.
First Monday in October.
Yep. Is there anything that you've seen that might be of interest to the audience that the court is? I noticed that they were not taking up. I just noticed a couple of things they weren't taking up, and I'm curious if you noticed anything that they were taking up that might be of interest. The one that I noticed that they said they passed on was the cake baker out in Colorado. This poor fella who can't stay out of. I mean, good for him, I guess, because he's like, look, y'all, I'm trying to bake cakes for people. If you have a gay wedding and you want to, just leave me be, and they won't. But thankfully, he was on the right side of that issue, and the Supreme Court said we're not dealing with this anymore, and I liked that.
Right.
Anything else?
No, not really. Not that I think that there's a little technical stuff that people in specific little areas would be interested in, but I'm more interested, frankly. I think the audience may be more interested in. You remember Trump's civil fraud case?
I do.
You know, where just in front of a judge and hit him for like $400 million. Excuse me. It's worked its way up on appeal. They had an oral argument in that case this week. And, you know, I've learned my lesson. Don't draw hard conclusions from oral arguments. But it's pretty clear to everyone who's read the transcript that this case is going to get thrown out, and Trump's going to win it. But the thing I'm curious about, man, is whether they will issue that decision before the election. It's close. It's like 3 weeks, and they could if they wanted to. The timing is purely political. But imagine if 4 days before the election, the New York Court of Appeals comes out and says this case was a travesty. It never should have been brought, and they were even talking about sanctioning the lawyers that brought it.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. No, it was that dramatic. And everything about this case has been political, and so I think the timing of their decision will be political. And it's New York, so my instincts tell me they'll wait until after the election to get it right. But they might do it before the election. I don't know. I think that's the most interesting thing on the legal front right now.
So remind me, they were at one point, this James lady in New York, if I'm remembering this correctly, she was declaring that she was getting ready to seize all of his New York assets, right? That's
right. No, that's exactly right. They were going to make him post some astronomical bond. They appealed that, and they said, nah, just $150 million. Look, we're just going to hit you for chump change, Trump.
Instead of the 400 or whatever, just give us 150, and we'll call it good for now.
Just whatever you got in your wallet, $150 million. That'll work. So this is my crystal ball tells me that case is going away. It really never should have been brought. It's a travesty, and the judges got it all, man. You know, they're saying, now wait a minute, the people you claim that got injured, they came to court and testified for Trump.
Right.
And said, no, we weren't defrauded at all. We made money.
Right. This is the case. I mean, and just for those that have forgotten it, right, this is the one where Trump got some business loans from banks.
Right.
And he was asked, well, what are you worth? You know, and he told them.
Or what's the property worth?
Yeah, right. That's right. And he was accused of overinflating his worth to get a better interest rate. And
to get the loans.
Right, to get the loans. And the bank said, well, no, we do our own due diligence, and we got all of our money back, and we wouldn't have done anything differently. I mean, so there's no victim
No, and they also said this is even better than that. They said, "Oh, we didn't even look at his stuff. We don't. He's Donald Trump. We've been doing business with this guy for 20 years.
Right.
We've loaned him billions of dollars, and every bit of it has been repaid with interest.
Right.
Any bank would love to have Donald Trump as a customer." And so they got it, and I believe that the whole case will get thrown out. My only question is, will that happen before the election?
And it's
I say no, but we'll see.
So it's possible. I mean, this is the United States Supreme Court or the
no, it's the
New York
Court of Appeals in New York.
Okay,
this was a state court.
Okay, that makes more sense to me now. I get it. So it's a state line. So, so being in New York, you feel like they're gonna, even if they have come to their conclusion, they're not going to throw it out there because they don't want to.
But I'll say this about it, Matt. The whole thing was so political and the outcome was so outrageous that a lot of business people, particularly in the real estate market, said, we're not doing business in New York anymore. This is awful. This is like a third world country. I mean, they can come, it's like Venezuela.
Right.
They're just going to take your whole company anytime they want to. And the Court of Appeals, the judge, he didn't care about all that. Well, the Court of Appeals, the New York Court of Appeals does. They want people to do business in New York. So they got to make this right. And if they want to make it right and really send a message, then issue that decision before the election.
Man, I would love it. I would love it. But your crystal ball feels like it's not going to happen. Yeah. 23 after the hour.
Listen, Matt, it is about as likely that would happen that Vanderbilt would beat Alabama.
Mark it. I was betting how long it would take him. Look, Jay St. Clair, our legal man, is on the line with us answering all of our legal questions. Get him in here, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. Jay, this, and I want to ask you this because I think I'm right on it, but I want to make sure. Someone said, hey, I thought the whole sentencing on that was sometime between the election and the inauguration. That's the criminal case.
Right. There's two cases up in New York. One was a civil case. The other is a criminal case. So, and that's what the listener is referring to there. But yeah, and the listener's right. The sentencing in the criminal case was going to come after the election. This is a completely different case.
Right. How many?
Well, I was about to say same kangaroo court, but it's maybe two different kangaroo courts.
How many judges will be deciding the civil? Five
judge panel.
And so once again, I know you said this right from the jump, and you've told me this repeatedly, is Matt, don't listen to Supreme Court arguments and think you can get where they're going based on the questions that they ask.
No, but with my case in front of the Supreme Court, I walked in and I said, we got Justice Ginsburg. She's with us. She read her whole dissent.
I was about to say, Jay, did you have Justice Ginsburg? No, you did not. But in this case, you feel like some of the language being used in that situation, that they are just pointing directly to the politicalization of this process.
Exactly. They said that. I mean, one of the judges just asked, well, just looking at all this, it seems to me the only reason this case was brought is this fellow was running for president of the United States. You said it right out loud, man.
I love it. In New York, he said it.
New York
City. Jay, a number of questions coming in for you. Does Tom have a question for Jay Bell? I didn't know if he had a question for Jay on the line or if that was something that was for later.
That's for later.
Okay, you just got to let me know on those. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll get to these questions that are a lot of them coming in from the members nutrition line, several employment-based questions, and I know that Jay loves those. We're in the midst of a Fri Jay edition with our good friend, legal correspondent, life consultant, and gambling buddy, Jay St. Clair. Jay, one question that has come in regard to the conversation we were having about the civil case. Joe writes and says, would you please ask Jay if anything might happen to the judge in the New York real estate case because of the gross bias exhibited at the trial level? Is Jay there? No.
Yep. No, I'm being very thoughtful about my response. I do not believe any official action will be taken against the judge.
Right.
You know, the Trump folks could file an ethics complaint against him, but those are just rarely successful against judges unless they really have if they take a bribe or something like that, and there's no suggestion there. So, no, I don't believe there will be any official consequences against the judge. Look, our system's good, but it's not perfect. Man.
Well, you and I have talked about this for many years, and I don't know that we've had a robust conversation about it since I've been in Nash. But the concept of a loser pays system would repair some of this stuff, because I mean the natural question that comes up, and obviously you're the expert in this line, but well, if you can't do anything from the judge perspective, and you can't do anything to keep the prosecutors from doing this, or the people from suing him, I mean, so in this case it was the I guess the city or the state. But in a civil trial, how do I keep people from just throwing these things and costing me so much money in legal fees? And
loser pays. That's absolutely the answer. And what that means is that whoever loses the lawsuit has to pay the other side's attorney's fees.
Mm-hmm.
Passing that one law, man, would get rid of the 80% of the garbage lawsuits that get filed. If that law were in place in New York, I was about to say I don't believe this lawsuit would have been filed. Yes, it would. They don't care, right? Because it's not their money.
Right. That's the state.
Taxpayers.
Right. So,
but yeah, they would be looking at writing. I bet Trump's paid. I don't know. I'd say at least $100 million in legal fees. That's the only good part of this story, man.
So, Jay, then that begs the question: why don't we see more politicians recommending that we go to a loser pays system?
That's a brilliant question, Matt. What percentage of politicians do you think are lawyers?
I'm sorry.
I'll tell you the answer to this question, Bill. Why don't politicians want to pass loser pays? It's the golden rule. The golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. That's why it didn't pass.
I was setting you up for your old line that Jay's been pulling on me for years. Lawyers got to eat too.
That's right. Lawyers are people too, man. Well, that's why I said the only silver lining around this lawsuit is that Trump's lawyers got paid $100 million.
That's right.
That would slid right by you, and that's the only happy part of this whole thing.
Is that, lawyers get a little cash to spend on things that lawyers spend money on, like, I don't know,
look, we're
golf.
People too, man. We got to eat just like everybody else.
Jay, 1946 wants to know, how do I go about buying mineral rights on my property? Part of what I love about what we do is Jay does not have any foreknowledge of any of these questions. And so it is truly just, I'm slinging things at him and he's just got to swing at them as they come. So Jay, mineral rights on property. What do you think?
Well, when you go to a good law school, man, stuff sticks with you a long time. So it's not like I'm just shooting in the dark.
Where'd you go to law school?
Yale.
Where'd you go to law school? Never. I never think that.
Always.
I never think that's not funny.
It'll always.
Hey, Weaver, that's the first time. Hey, Ken Weaver's in the newsroom, Jay. I don't know if you can hear him. You've never heard that one, have you?
I have not.
I'm going to do it again just for Ken. Jay, where'd you go to law school?
Yale.
Where'd you go to law school? I love it every time. Ken, Jay and I have been doing that joke for 20 years, and we laugh at it every time.
That's awesome.
But anyway, property.
The answer to the question is, first of all, you have to find out who owns those mineral rights. And so you got to do a deed search. You can maybe try to do that yourself, but it'd take a long time. I'd hire a lawyer just to do a search of the deeds and figure out who owns it. Right, that's the first thing, who owns it, and then go to that person or entity, it's probably a company, and make them an offer. Mm-hmm. But first of all, you got to find out who owns it. And there's a deed somewhere. People don't understand that oftentimes you don't own the mineral rights underneath your house.
Well, I was going to back up a little bit, and I was going to say, Jay, I'm publicly educated in the state of Georgia, so you got to go slow with me. So if I buy a piece of property, that doesn't necessarily mean that I own the minerals underneath me?
That's exactly right. It all depends on what's in the deed, and it's common, particularly common in areas where there are a lot of minerals, particularly coal. If you're in an area where there are coal seams, it's very likely that you don't own the dirt all the way down to the center of the earth. If there are minerals down there, they don't belong to you. If there's coal seam 1,000 foot deep.
Boy, I was just, it's weird this question comes up because I was just listening to Milton Friedman.
Well, I saw that, man, and it made me so happy. Maybe you knew about him before me, but I know we've talked about him. I told you when I was at the university, you asked me when I formed my political views and whatnot, and I told you. It was at the University of Tennessee. I was studying economics, and I was introduced to Milton Friedman.
Well, I was aware of Milton Friedman and aware of his philosophies, but I was not as intimately aware of him as I've gotten since you and I have been friends. And yeah. I applaud. I wish more people were learned about the way that he believed and his economic philosophy and policy and his just beliefs on life and good government. And he was speaking, the clip, I might play it for the audience later. The clip was in regards to what the role of government is. And he brought up property rights, and he brought up the example. Well, if an airplane flies 10,000 feet above your house, are they violating your property rights? Well, if they fly 10 feet above your house, right, are they violating you? See, that's where government comes in to figure out where that line is, because it's not a clear, bright line. It's a gray area, and the government has to establish the rule of law in that regard.
Darren, let me just put a plug in. Anybody that's interested in this, you got plenty of time. I'm sure you can get it for just about free. Get the book by Milton Friedman called Liberty and Freedom. Mm-hmm. It was a sign reading for me at Tennessee when I was in college there studying economics. Changed my worldview. Liberty and Freedom by Milton Friedman. And,
it's funny when you talk about property rights and mineral rights and whatnot, where you are in the United States of America, you have to adjust your thinking on what you might have ownership of and what you might not. I know because of Erica's family back in New Mexico. In New Mexico, you know what the big deal is, right, Jay?
Water.
That's right. You do not necessarily own the water on your property just because you own the property. Somebody else might own the water rights to your property.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Please ask Jay if your general manager, and I think this is just a generalized question, if your general manager fails to write up an incident report upon getting hurt at work, can I do anything legally about that? I love the phrasing of the question, but I think you get the spirit.
I'm not really sure what if you got hurt at work, it doesn't matter whether the company did an incident report or not. You're still eligible for workers' compensation. So if the question is, am I still eligible for workers' compensation? The answer is yes.
Okay.
If you're saying that your general manager just failed to do his job, that the workers' comp's being taken care of, or maybe you weren't hurt and you don't need anything, can you personally do anything about your boss not correctly doing his job? Really, all you can do is go complain to his boss. Mm-hmm. And I'm right in the middle of this situation like this right now, where somebody just, so it was a plant manager, wasn't doing his job, and the people who reported to him complained above him. You can go to him, but it's not going to do any good. So if you're just saying, if my boss is not doing his job, what can I do? Well, you can go report it to his boss. But he's going to find out about it.
Well, that's right.
And then he may not like you.
Well, if you, what's the old saying? If you go after the king, if you shoot at the king, you better hit him.
If you're going to shoot at the king, if you're going to shoot at the king, you better not miss.
Yeah, that's right. Question for Jay. I love HOA. HOA questions reminds me. Remember HOA Karen back in Helena, Alabama? Remember that lady that I fought with so much? Question. I was in a part of an HOA for a while, and it did not go well. Anybody understanding my personality will recognize that type of thing wouldn't go well with me. How do I get out of an HOA? My house was built in 1973. The subdivision built in 2008 and 2009. The lady that owned the house in that particular time joined the HOA in order to hook up to the septic system. Thank you very much, Steve from Mount Juliet.
See, that's going to be a question of your deed again. Your deed, you need to look at your deed and look at if there is a restrictive covenant in the deed that says that to own this property, you must be a member of the HOA. It's all a matter of contract. And so if that's in your deed, then if you own that property, you have to be in the HOA. If it's not in your deed, if the prior owner just signed a separate contract, well, then that contract doesn't apply to you. You can just send them a letter and say, I'm withdrawing from the HOA. I wasn't clear. Is it clear from his question, Matt, whether the prior owner joined the HOA before he bought the property?
Yeah, that is my interpretation of the question. I'll just read it again. My house was built in 1973, and the subdivision was built in 2008, 2009. The lady that owned the house at that particular time joined the HOA in order to hook up to the septic system. And so
so the question is, when she joined the HOA, I doubt she put that in the deed.
Right.
That's just something that she signed. And even if she signed it and purported to bind subsequent purchasers, I don't think that's valid.
Okay.
So I'd have to see the paperwork. But my guess is there's not a restrictive covenant in your deed requiring you to be in the HOA. So I suspect you can probably just write a letter and say, I'm out.
Let me know how it goes, 1081. I would love to hear the outcome of that because I have a particular interest in watching HOAs take it in the short hairs. 0470. HOA Karens. You know what I'm saying. The short hairs being the short little hairs on the back of one's neck. 0476 says, in Tennessee, my mom passed away. I'm sad to hear that. Brother kept all of mom's things and money. No will. I filed for executorship to the probate court, right, and I have an attorney. Right. Do you have any predictions, or I guess they're asking you for any advice regarding the outcome in this case? So,
well, if you die without a will, and I'm assuming your dad predeceased her, and so if there are two children, y'all split the estate 50-50. And so if your brother has gone in and kind of grabbed stuff, then you'll probably be entitled to some of that. It's a 50-50 split in Tennessee if there's two surviving children and no surviving spouse. So you've done exactly what you need to do. Get a lawyer, file, open up a probate estate. And then you got to go do an accounting, right, and go find out what all was there. And by law, your brother has to tell the truth about what he kept. But, yeah, you at the end of the day, y'all should end up with a 50-50 split.
Jay, as always, we run out of time before we run out of questions, but I'll save them for next week, my friend, and I appreciate you. Any thoughts on the Vols this weekend, taking on the hated Florida Gators, right?
Well, they playing football. It's funny, Matt, because when I was coming up, in the 70s, Alabama was clearly the number one rival, right? I mean, it goes back a long, long time. But, once it went to the division play, that changed a little bit. Like my son, in his early 40s, grew up in the 90s. No, we're living in Alabama. He still hates Alabama worse than Florida. But Florida's pretty close second. We'll see. It was a disappointing game last week, but, just take them one at a time. Humility is only a week away. And, that's it. My entire commentary about last week's games was there's no shame in losing to Bama. I said that. Well, the NIL thing's going to make it more like it's going to be like the NFL. That's right. I don't think any team in the SEC is getting out without a loss this year. I just don't. Yep. Jay, love you, brother. Hit them straight. Thank you, buddy.